Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, then make predictions for next week's top 5. So let's get right on into it. Last week I predicted that number 1 would be Rampage, number 2 would be A Quiet Place, number 3 would be Truth or Dare, number 4 would be Ready Player One, and number 5 would be Blockers, and I got all 5 of my predictions correct. Thank God for that. I wasn't sure where number 3 was going to land, if Truth or Dare was actually going to make it to that spot, but thank God for that. Now let's move on to what actually happened in the overall top 10. Number 1 was Rampage, making $35 million this weekend. Now, you might look at the production budget of $120 million and think, well, that's not very impressive, but then you look at the worldwide numbers, and it's already at $151 million. So it's actually doing pretty good for itself already. It only needs about like $89 million more to go until it doubles its budget, and it's considered a success, which is great for the movie. I did see this movie, and I have plenty of thoughts to say on it. I just don't really have the time to make a dedicated, like, full in-depth video yet, so whenever I get the chance to talk about this movie, I can't wait. Jesus Christ. But I also heard, speaking of the box office for this film, that this is like a personal record for The Rock as far as like China debuts. This is like his largest one, which is, that's pretty impressive for him too. It just kind of shows like the continuing rising star power that The Rock has to his name. Number 2, we have A Quiet Place, making $32 million, just about $3 million behind Rampage, and also only dropping about like 34% from last weekend's $50 million opening. This of course adds to a domestic total of $100 million, and on the worldwide chart, it is already sitting at $151 million. I can't believe that this movie is doing as well as it did. I thought for sure that it would have like maybe a larger drop, but this is actually pretty good. I wouldn't say it's like the Get Out, where it's gonna like just make all this kind of money. It's gonna get like Oscar buzz later on in the year, but it is a one-of-a-kind kind of horror film that I'm glad more people are going out to see, and I'm hoping that the drops are kind of the same with this weekend, because this is a film that I think is worth seeing, especially if you're not even a horror fan, because they actually do a lot of unique things here that might make you a horror fan. Moving on to number 3, we have Truth or Dare, making $18 million, and of course, because it's a Blumhouse movie, it's only on a budget of about $3.5 million. So yep, it already doubled it, tripled it, quadrupled it. It's doing fantastically at the box office, but of course, like, what else would you really expect from a Blumhouse film? I haven't seen it yet, but I really do want to see this film because it looks hysterical, and from what I've heard from some other people, it is pretty funny. So maybe that's a part of like how much it just made this weekend, like the 18 million. Maybe a lot of that is people thinking that it's going to be like hilariously bad and people are going to see it like that, or maybe it is just the teen audience that we're being marketed to, just going in and seeing it. Moving on to number 4, we have Ready Player One, making $11 million, adding to a domestic total of $114 million. Now, it still has some ways to go domestically until it gets past the 175 production budget, but worldwide it is already like almost at 500 million. Like, it's sitting at 475 million right now, and the fact that it's almost at $500 million is pretty fantastic for this film. And compare that to Steven Spielberg's last big blockbuster kind of film, the BFG. This is much better. I know The Post and Bridge of Spies, they were pretty good for him, but this movie, the big blockbuster one that cost way more than all of those, this is where the money kind of really matters, and it's really showing that a lot of people are really digging this film. The word of mouth is really spreading, and even though I don't really love this movie, I liked it enough, I can definitely say that there is a lot of entertainment to be had. Moving on to number 5, we have Blockers, making $10 million, adding to a domestic total of $37 million, and on the worldwide chart, it is sitting at 53. So double that $21 million production budget, it's $11 million over that, which is fan-frickin-tastic for this film. I still really do want to see this movie, actually. I wasn't looking forward to it at first because of the marketing, but the fact that this movie actually has, like, higher ratings than I was expecting, like, actually has me kind of curious. Like, it kind of reminds me of like Trainwreck from 2015 or Game Night even from earlier this year. So that's pretty good. If this movie, like I said last week, if this movie is actually good, then it deserves all the praise and money that it gets for that. Moving on to number 6, we have Black Panther, making $5.7 million, adding to a domestic total of $674 million, and on the worldwide chart, it is sitting at $1.308 billion. I've talked a lot about how well this movie is doing financially. I honestly just can't wait at this point to see Black Panther be in the same top 10 list as Avengers Infinity War in 2 weeks. Like, that's just going to be super amazing that two comic book films that I'm sure are going to break a lot of records. I'm sure Infinity War is going to crush everything, are just in the same list. Moving on to number 7, we have Isle of Dogs, making $5.4 million, adding to a domestic total of $18 million on a budget of, I'm not quite sure, maybe $50 million, I guess, and on the worldwide chart, it is sitting at $27 million. So it was able to expand in a couple other theaters this weekend, which is very good. It's a little disappointing that it couldn't make a little bit more, but these kind of stop-motion films don't usually do that well, which is kind of sad, but that's just kind of the truth of the matter. I still need to review it, I still need the time to, but if you haven't seen it yet, all I'll say is please do check it out if it's near you. Moving on to number 8, we have I Can Only Imagine, making $4 million, adding to a domestic total of $75 million. But kind of like I've said, like every other time I brought this film up, I still don't know anything about it, just that it's low budget and it's made a lot of money because it's a faith-based project, so let's move on to number 9, which is Tyler Perry's Acrimony, making $3.6 million, adding to a domestic total of $37 million. And even though it's about to leave the top 10, I think for sure it'll be able to get to the doubling point of its $20 million production budget. Like, it made $3.6 million this weekend. It's probably going to make about $3 million more in order to get to $40 million domestically. So yeah, I think this movie's financially pretty good. And finally, closing out the video, number 10, Chappaquiddick, making $3.05 million, adding to a domestic total of $11 million on a budget of, I still don't know what, similar to this in Isle of Dogs from last weekend. I just don't know what the production budgets are. And now it's time for the fun part, guys, the predictions for next week's top 5. I'm going to put number 1, Rampage again, and then, maybe a little risky, but number 2, A Quiet Place. And then number 3, I Feel Pretty. Number 4, Truth or Dare. And number 5, Ready Player One. But what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave it in the comments below, and if you got your predictions right for this week, you're going to get a shout out right now. Unless you didn't get it right, then I'm sorry. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.